So it's been almost 15 years we're researching alternative financing. Let's say by that time we were not sure crowdfunding was the solution. It's part of it, but we were looking when we started an intensive research with scraping data from the main Kickstarter at that time or Indiegogo at that time. We were looking for a solution to be able to finance social impact project, not any kind of project, but specifically social impact project with what we call an open DNA, which means projects which are looking for being beneficial for society beyond the life cycle of the project itself. So after research, we really realized that civic crowdfunding, especially, which is the type of crowdfunding we are deploying with Goteo Foundation, with Goteo, crowdfunding and civic crowdfunding is a powerful instrument, I'd say, for public participation and policy innovation. So with many initiatives, I'd say crossing boundaries between activism, advocacy, social entrepreneurship and social innovation. So this is basically where we started from. So we took the word crowdfunding and we basically divided into and we had built our main hypothesis behind the design and life cycle of Goteo. So can we ensure crowd benefits at the end of the chain? So it's not only crowdfunding for the project owner and for people receiving the reward or the perk. It's about like creating more wealth together with new types of financing, but also new types of community building, which is basically where we cross the path. So we talk about social impact being able through crowdfunding. So that's civic crowdfunding. That's the crowdfunding, the type of crowdfunding, the typology we like. Main hypothesis from the start was, can crowdfunding be compatible with crowd benefits or social impact? So can we ensure social commitment from all sides of the ecosystem? So people who are supporting project and people who need support. And that's basically, we thought, well, let's apply that lesson to our own project, which is basically building a civic crowdfunding platform together with the community. And then because we come from a free software world, so we are developing our own platform, so we're not depending on external services. We decided from the start that the code itself of the platform should be open source. That means anyone can copy it. Inclusively, the license allows commercial use of it. So that's basically the most open license you can apply to a code or an ID or whatever you come up with. So basically Goteo is open source, and I think by now, the last time I checked on GitHub, which is the repository of the code itself, I think we had like almost 200 replicas around the world, which is interesting to see. The most interesting one being, it's a surprise for us, Yokohama. The city of Yokohama had set up this green civic crowdfunding platform, and they used our code. So it was pretty impressive at the time when they did it, because they had much more resources than us. So the code was even more beautiful, more colors. It was very more effective. So the fact is, being open source, it's like a boomerang effect. So in that case, the Yokohama team would basically improve a lot the code, and all the improvements would come back to us. And that's basically how we learn and how we improve our platforms, because we know around the world there's communities that need even more the type of product or platform or services we're building. They apply it to their own needs, and then we learn from them. And this is basically how the wealth and then the social capital around Goteo is growing. So we have knowledge from all around the world coming back and feeding back in. The way we imagined 10 years ago and the way now we see civic crowdfunding evolving is basically a guarantee of solidarity, transparency, social impact. I'd say what we call democratic innovation, because we're innovating a lot on public funding with the match funding scheme, and of course mainly 85% I'd say of civic crowdfunding is about community building. So basically this is basically the pillars where we the whole ecosystem is functioning around, and that's like evolution of a cosmology. So we have this community around, we have people like which are really like keen on supporting project So we also do some kind of a social brokering. So if you're a supporter, then in your dashboard you also have references and suggest you projects of your kind, and then that works quite a lot. So Goteo is working a lot with this idea of solidarity being expanded. So I think that's something to be really taking in account. So and I'd say from if I remember an article from the Stanford Social Innovation Review that would talk about Goteo in these words. I think they were saying the power of Goteo is the creation of shared experience and impact, in addition to a valuable model and set of practices for future projects. So I think the fact that Goteo is associated with democratic innovation, democratic funding, and social impact commitment is one of our main success, I'd say. COVID was basically a milestone, which is we were back to solidarity and extreme funds, and very extreme flexible funds, let's say. So one example is, of course, the range of solidarity campaigns springing up to combat the COVID-19 crisis on platforms such as Goteo. So there's many examples, but just to name a few. So we had all these makers coalitions that were producing and donating equipment to health workers. That was amazing. But in Goteo, we also had during the COVID-19 crisis, a collective fund that was created to support a rent strike and support renters who might otherwise be left without staple necessities, and raise awareness about the issue. So that kind of a project was really meaningful. And I'd say the most actually impactful locally project we had during the COVID. So we gathered 17 entities from the Solidarity Social and Solidarity Economic Network, and we found a cooperative contingency fund to support initiatives that were coordinating response to the social and health emergency. So these were various Catalan social and solidarity economy organizations that support, I guess, more than 50 solidarity initiatives, that were providing direct solution to the emergency and were requiring resources for their own sustainability. So we had every kind of project, such as so we had cooperatives and community initiatives, such as food agroecology, food emergencies, in the textile sector, social cooperatives that were building sanitary materials. In the care sector, we had emergency care cooperatives helping out the public health system. We also had construction cooperatives, like taking care of urgent domestic repairs, I'd say. And we also had, of course, many platform cooperative initiatives, such as Mensacas, which is a riders cooperative, which is basically the food delivery, which is a more ethical model than Glovo. So they were rising up through the pandemic, and they still going to grow very strong this year. So I'm quite proud of all these digital pioneers that helped us. So entities from the civil society who sum up their effort with crowdfunding. So we talked about local regional governments, universities, foundations that were aligning with our mission. I'd say the City Council of Barcelona is a strong one. I'll also mention Gipuzkoa, Diputación de Gipuzkoa, which is a region in the Basque Country, which so we're working together, and we've been launching 5 or 6 match funding calls. So it's a really long-term relationship. And what we're trying to do now is democratize this idea of match funding. So anyone on a personal basis, or if I'm a philanthropist, I could also become under my own name a private funder. So we also designed and developed a tool which makes all the match funding possible on the citizen side, without us as a foundation being an intermediary. So I hope that's the future. I think we're exactly on the border where we need to ensure that we can measure the impact of the projects and the platform themselves, also within the city and such, going down to the scale of districts or city or region. So I believe the future of civic crowdfunding specifically is associated with the fact that we should all have a strong commitment as platform and organization to open data. So and in that case, we have a long experience in Goteo. So I think Goteo and its API and all these its data repository represents like a unique approach to data transparency as one of the few open source crowdfunding platforms in the world. So, and we're holding a full public scrutiny of our main funding dynamics, campaigns, backers' behaviors, and we're even now building what we call a social impact calculator, which would also be able to think about, try to imagine or have data from the start when even when the project are still on the crowdfunding phase, and also looking at their life cycle after 2 years. So we're really preparing the future of open data measurements, I would say, and we really need other platforms to join this strong effort. And I think that's also some of the interest of and then part of my role as in the board of EUROCROWD is basically making a definitive bet of open data. So we should all work together to be more transparent and more democratic. EUROCROWD is a strong opportunity for platforms to find their equivalents in different countries and start to work together, mainly on data analysis on what we could get in the last 10 years. And I specifically remember our participation to a research done by EUROCROWD with different platforms, which was called Triggering Participation. It was a collection of civic crowdfunding and match funding experiences in the EU. I think that's the type of experience that we want to keep on working with. And I really believe that we need to think of, together with EUROCROWD, of the potential of crowdfunding and match funding for policymakers. So I'd really like to see the experience of Goteo in new policies for crowdvocacy, as we call it. So the advocacy done by the crowd would be facilitated by a crowdfunding platform, but also participant platform. And that's also something EUROCROWD should look at. So what are the other types of platforms which are not doing alternative funding, but they also help initiative to be co-created, to be voted, to have a stronger and more democratic governance. I think that's the way we should all go. So that's basically where we bring our knowledge and all our efforts to help all the platforms to join the movement for finding let's say the valuable crowd asset and being a little bit more academic than we can be on the ground when we run a platform.